right. Well, I'll start with the introduction. My name is Anna, and I am with the Calapua Watershed Council. I am the Assistant Outdoor School Coordinator, but unfortunately, due to everything that's happening with the world right now, my task has been to help put outdoor school curriculum online, and hence why we are live streaming and then putting educational videos online. So parents and students at home can join in and also learn about the outdoors while still indoors. And then Sarah's joining us, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah, my name is Sarah Norton, and I am the outdoor school coordinator for the Calapua Watershed Council. So obviously, outdoor school has been canceled this year due to COVID-19, and so we've decided to try and bring outdoor school and some of our lessons online and on social media to share with not just our students, but anyone who's interested in the environment and learning more. So yeah, that's basically what we've been doing these past few weeks.
Yeah, and then I think since today's gonna be all about birds, we'll start off with an activity, and then during the activity it'll be a Q&A session where I'll ask Sarah some questions regarding and relating to birds. And then of course, people who are tuning in right now, feel free to just shoot questions down in the comment section below. I will see them and then we'll get to them as much as possible. But yeah, just like trying to engage with us. And yeah, Sarah, do you want to like open up to talk about the activity we're doing today?
Yeah, sure. I've done this activity with a lot of different students before. And so for anyone out there who's ever gone birding, or if you're interested in birding, this is a good little activity to kind of get you started on what to look for with birds. And so we're going to be drawing and marking birds for their different field marks. And so that's why we asked for, colored pencils or crayons, paper, and then you can either go online and Google a picture of a bird that you're interested in, or if you have like a bird guide like mine, I'm going to draw a bird from here today. And what I love about this activity is you do not have to be an artist.
Good.
Because I'm going to try and draw upside down today so you can all see. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to pick a bird, and we're going to try and draw it out and add the different field marks that you notice on that bird and label it. Yeah, and so when it comes to bird identification, a really important part is understanding the shape and size of birds, understanding different field marks like colorings or different patterns that you can see on birds, and also their behavior. So since we're drawing, we're not going to really get to see a lot of behavior, but some of the things that we will draw a hint at, things like bird beaks. Different birds all have different shapes and size beaks for different things that they eat, which is something we can draw today. So did you want to start with the activity, or?
Yeah, let's continue the activity, and then we'll just jump right into some of the questions I have for you. And then as questions hopefully start coming in, we'll start asking those as well.
Cool.
But yeah, so for folks who are wanting to get into birding, what kind of materials would you recommend for them?
Yeah, if you want to get into birding, and that's something that I love right now is because we can still get outside and see the birds, and it's springtime, so birds are migrating back up north, so there's a lot of new bird life coming in. I'm actually right by my window right here. I can just bird from my window. It's super easy to do. If you have access to a window, you probably are birding and don't even realize it. And with that, I also recommend getting maybe like a field guide. There's all sorts of different field guides. This is my favorite one. Yeah, Sibley. But there's also other guides. You can get more like guides for your state or for maybe the area you live in. You can also get photographic guides if you like that better. And then binoculars. If you feel like investing in them, that's great. If not, that's cool too. You can just bird from your window or backyard. Yeah, it's just easy. And then there's also a lot of free online resources as well, like the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. They have an app called Merlin, which is free, and you can download it right on your phone, and it helps you identify different birds you're looking at, and it takes in like your area, and you can answer this little quiz on the app, and it'll lead you to what bird you think you might be seeing, which is really cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, so to summarize everything that Sarah said, yeah, there's a lot of like online resources. You can go to like your local like Fish and Wildlife, or even some like watershed council like us, other like environmental nonprofits to just talk more about birds or learn more about the local birds in your area. Pick up one of these like handy dandy, like really thick birding guides. I'm not a birder myself, but I'm trying to get into it as much as possible, just because like Sarah said, it's really accessible. You just go out to your backyard or just take a walk down the street and you just spot a bird anywhere. So yeah, it's pretty cool activity to get into, especially right now. But yeah, do you have a bird already chosen out, or should we talk about that real quick?
I do have a bird I chose, and it's one here in Oregon that we can see. I already earmarked it. So I chose today to do the spotted towhee. And so this is often a common bird you'll see, and it likes to forage on the ground. You can see it kicking up leaves and stuff, looking for insects and different food sources. It's really pretty. As you can see, some of the field marks on this guy are just that it's really black on top with orange. Oops, sorry, I showed you the wrong towhee. It has like that nice orange and white underbelly, along with a lot of the spotting on the wings. So that's what I'm going to try and mark out today. If you also look at its beak, it's kind of short and a little conical. And then it kind of has kind of a straight outward tail. So I'm going to focus on trying to represent that as well today. But we'll see, because I'm drawing upside down.
Is there a reason why you're drawing upside down today?
So I'm going to try and turn the camera so you can see it. And so I believe that's how it's going to work. So.
I think if you draw it regularly, it should show up on camera if you turn it around.
True. We'll see what's easier for people to do. They can let us know.
Awesome. Is anyone else at home joining us for this activity today? All you need is pretty much like a journal, a piece of paper, pen or pencils, and I have color pencils here with me today just because I like labeling and being colorful with my pictures. But yeah, if you're joining us today, just comment below like what kind of birds you're drawing. But I think I'm gonna go for something that's dealing with water. Maybe, ooh. So I took a trip down to the Everglades a couple years ago, and one of my favorite birds down there is the purple gallinule.
Oh, beautiful. They're so pretty.
And I like to just call them like awkward little water chickens, because what they'll do is like they'll have their feet and then they'll run awkwardly across the top of the water on top of like vegetation. And they're like the size of chickens. They're brightly colored purple and like iridescent green. And they're just like really awkward little things, but they're so incredibly beautiful. So I think we'll draw that today. Oh, someone said they're drawing a pigeon. That's awesome.
Yeah, go Lizzie.
But yeah, feel free to just ask us some questions as we're doing this. I think since I'm not that artistic, I'll just try to stick with the colors, but also for the field markings, such as like the beak and the wings and the feet, I'll just do like ovals or circles or triangles. Would that also work out?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm going to do, is show how you can draw shapes and then build it from there. Yeah, and these birds, remember, you don't have to be a perfect artist or anything. Just draw what you can and label it. We're more about looking at important field marks, because this will help you remember better when you actually go outside and maybe you'll see them in the field. So, all right, I'm going to try and angle my camera so you can actually see what I'm drawing.
Okay.
I rigged a little contraption for this.
Someone said you found a great horned owl, which was super cool. And
Awesome.
yeah, feel free to just start asking questions for Sarah relating to anything about birds. Sarah, what's your background with birds? So how did you, like, what is to extent, like, what knowledge do you have about birds?
So I've been interested in birds probably since about the 6th grade or 7th grade. I got to go on a school field trip to Cornell, and I don't know if you can see that. It's the start. That's the body of my towhee so far. And yeah, I saw this American kestrel they had in their falconry collection, and I fell in love and just got really curious, and ever since then I've become this bird nerd. And yeah, it stemmed from there. Then in my undergrad I got to work with a falconer, and we got to catch and band different raptors, and so we're studying American kestrels and red-tailed hawks and putting federal bands out. And so if that bird was recaptured, we would collect more data on such as like where it's been, you know, any bird behavior, that sort of thing. And I just got hooked into studying raptors. And after I graduated, I traveled kind of around the country for about 9 years, and just studying different bird species, primarily raptors. And yeah, that's kind of what I got really into birds. And from there, I decided I wanted to do more than just study birds. I wanted to you know, share my knowledge and experience. And so I went back to school and got my master's in environmental education. And so now I'm here today as an outdoor school coordinator, where I get to share my love of nature and research experiences, and now apparently my drawing abilities.
And so like what kind of, I guess, like suggestions do you have if someone wants to find a baby bird right now? Because considering we're jumping into the spring season and we'll start seeing more juvenile birds or like baby birds hatch. If we find one like on our walk in the park or down in our back or like in our backyard, like what are your suggestions for that? Like how do we deal with it?
Yeah, so that's a question I get a lot. About, you know, I found a baby bird, what do I do? There's a bunch of different answers for that. The best one is if you find a bird and can get it back in its nest, or if you see its parents nearby and the bird is not in danger, it's best to just leave it be. Usually the parents have a good eye on their chicks. If it is in danger or you're not sure where this nest is, that's when you might want to contact like a wildlife rehabber. Near us, we have the Chintimony Wildlife Center, and they do wildlife rehab. You can take birds there. But it's best to really let nature kind of do its thing. I know it's hard to just resist, you know, not helping a baby animal when you see it, but sometimes it is best to let nature take its course.
Mm-hmm. And then we have a question right now. It said, or someone says, what's the most exciting bird you've seen in the wild?
Oh, that's hard. I think the most exciting for me was I got to travel to Iceland a few years ago, and I got to see a gyrfalcon in this canyon. It was pretty far out. I wouldn't have seen it without my binoculars, but I think it was more funny because it was the first gyrfalcon I had ever seen, and I kind of freaked out in a tourist area, and so I was screaming at my friends that a deer falcon, and all these tourists were just staring at me because I can be a pretty intense birder sometimes.
Awesome. And I think sorry, I'm like trying to read through the questions right now, but so folks who don't know, what's the difference between like a bird of prey and like a regular bird? Like, how do you tell them apart?
All right, so birds of prey. Actually, I can show you because I brought this little guy along. I'm gonna move back up here. So this was actually a gift. This is a statue of an American kestrel, which is one of my favorite birds. It's found all throughout North America. It's the smallest falcon species, and so it is a bird of prey, also known as a raptor. And so the big difference is that raptors have this pointed beak. It's sharp. It's meant for catching and tearing into prey. And then they also have, you can see, really sharp talons.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what breaks them apart from other birds, is they're just built to really, kill and tear their food. Yeah.
Awesome. And can you like kind of like differentiate that from like a non-bird of prey? Like compare it to like a swallow. Like what kind of like bird markings would we find that are different between those two?
Okay. Well, birds, they all have been organized into different groups, and so yeah, the big tells for birds of prey is the talons and the beak, whereas like non-birds of prey, they're not going to have that sharp hooked beak unless they're like hunting fish or something, and that looks very different, such as like cormorants or herons. You can tell they have a really different bill that's still sharp for hunting. And then other birds, they're just adapted for the way they fly, the way they hunt food or scavenge for food, and for what habitats they live in. So birds are very diverse in that way. And so that's why I do recommend looking through your field guides or doing drawings like this so far, just to get an idea of birds that you might be seeing.
Awesome. And then we do have another question. It says, is there a way to look up a bird from its call online? I keep hearing one and don't know what it is.
Yes, you can do that. So Cornell has a website online, and you can look up calls on there. You can also download an app that, and you can look up birds, and it should have, like the Merlin app has recordings. I believe Audubon has an app as well, but it has all the call recordings, so you can kind of compare them through that way.
Awesome. And then I'm assuming that different birds have different callings as well. So how would a person go about like distinguishing which call belongs to which bird?
Yes. Yeah, so every species has its own unique call, and actually those calls vary even more where you're living. So you might have like the black-capped chickadee lives, over most of North America, but it's going to have different calls in different regions. It's kind of like how we have different accents where we live in the United States. Birds have that too, for depending on what region they live in, which I think is pretty cool.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, is there anything like fun facts you have to share with everyone about birds?
Well, right now it is migration season, so a lot of birds are returning to their breeding grounds, which is fantastic. One of these birds that I love is actually a coastal bird. It visits the Oregon coast in the summer, and it's called the sooty shearwater. And they actually have one of the world's longest migrations. it migrates all the way down to New Zealand during our winter to breed, because in New Zealand it's spring and summer. And then it comes up here in our summer to feed and hang out along our coast, and then also the coast of like Russia and Canada, which is really cool. So they kind of just skip winter totally, which I think is pretty smart in some ways.
That's awesome. And then I think tying it back with the watershed, why are birds important for a watershed in particular?
So I really like that question, because actually we all live in a watershed. And so if for those who don't know, a watershed is just an area of land where all the bodies of water flow down into a common point. And so for our watershed council, we focus a lot on like the Calapooya River and then parts of the Willamette as well. And yeah, so what's great about birds is they are usually seen as an indicator species. And so what that means is they are really good indicators for habitat health. You know, are the birds that would live in a certain habitat, are they still here, or are their populations decreasing? They're a really good signal for if our environmental quality is decreasing or not. It's just a really easy way to tell too, because unlike a lot of animals, you either have to catch them or do some really intensive field work, whereas with birds, to tell about habitat quality, you can just have people go out and do observations. You can do, they call them point counts, where they have biologists actually go out and they will stand in certain areas throughout the day and just record all the bird song they're hearing. And it's just a really good, simple way to tell, you know, what's going on in our habitat and in our ecosystem, what's happening to bird species.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And just remind everyone that we are opening it up for questions. But right now we are doing like this activity that everyone can do, follow along at home. I just showed everyone while you were talking, Sarah, my drawing that I just completed, and I'm starting another bird right now.
Sweet.
But, yeah, so like I said, I was drawing the purple gallinule. With this activity, all you need is like a bird reference. So it can either be from like a birding guide or a picture you find online and just pull it up. You can also just sit outside and just watch a bird as well. But this also really helps with field identification, and I chose to use color pencils to differentiate each body characteristic and feature. But yeah, this is a purple gallinule. As you can tell, in comparison to Sarah's, mine is not very artistic, but it does the job. So I have some color labels right there. The purple is the body, the yellow the legs, the beak is in another color, and the wings. And so just from learning about what species I drew just now, I just found out that the wings, the point of the wings are elongated, and that can differentiate the different types of gallinule. And the legs only have like 3 kind of pointed toes that are really long. Again, I mentioned before with bird behavior, when I saw them, they kind of ran across the water. So I'm assuming because their legs are longer and have like a wider surface area, it kind of acts like kind of flippers, but also toes to keep them on the water. And then their beak is kind of just your usual bird beak, kind of smaller, triangular. And yeah, so I think I did a pretty decent job drawing that one right there. And I see some questions coming up right now, so I will start asking those to you, Sarah.
Sure, 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, and so some things that I did also with this, you can see, is You can also label the different parts, maybe some things that really stand out to you about your bird. That'll help you remember. This is also really great for when you go outside if you see a bird and you want to sketch it. It's good to write down different things you're seeing about the bird because then you can look it up later. It's always easier to observe the bird and see as much as you can see and record it before you actually open your guidebook, because you never know, the bird might fly away before you actually see it.
Awesome. Can you talk about some of the descriptions you wrote down on the paper?
Yeah, so this is my spotted towhee, and so maybe I'll hold up. So that's the actual lovely artwork by David Sibley. But so this is my spotted towhee. So things I marked is they actually have like an orangish red eye. But the big markings, you'll see white spots along the wing, and then that orangish side, and then just how they're kind of this dark black on top. And then I also wrote kind of a conical beak from what I could see.
Awesome. Yeah, so in comparison to like both of our drawings, it can be as simple as just using colored pencils and just like differentiating the wings from the legs and just pointing out what kind of things are different in comparison to other birds. And Sarah took the initiative and did like labeling the body parts, which was really smart on her end, just because, you know, you go back home and you actually sit down and then look through your guide or look online and use those identifications to really narrow down which bird species you were looking at or you saw.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll start with a question. Someone asked, what can I do to support wildlife in my backyard, or birds? Birds or wildlife in the backyard?
That's a great question. So a big thing you can do is actually gardening. So there's a lot of different plants online that are recommended for your yard that can bring in pollinators, that can bring in birds. There's also, you can add like a small water feature or something like a bird bath. It can be really simple. You can also add a hummingbird feeder or other bird feeders to your yard. They do require maintenance to make sure they're clean and, you know, not moldy or anything for the birds. Yeah, and then also looking at your yard, just making sure if you want to have birds in your yard, being aware of cats that might visit. You want to be careful if there's any outdoor or feral cats around. That's a big concern. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool landscaping and plant ideas online you can look up.
Awesome. Thank you for the tip. And then another question is, why are owls so grumpy? I thought was cute.
I love it. Owls. I don't think they're always very grumpy. They just seem to have that look about them. Which I actually love. So a lot of their markings, especially on the smaller owls, actually helps disguise them. You may have seen pictures of screech owls where you like barely see them in a tree. Those are also really good field markings to be aware of for owls. Yeah, I think they just have that look about them in their face that they always look grumpy.
And someone asked, why is it not okay to feed breadcrumbs to birds?
Yeah, so bread isn't actually part of a natural diet for birds. It's actually can be really detrimental to certain species, especially like ducks. You really shouldn't be feeding breadcrumbs and such to ducks. They actually I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think it's called like angel wing, but it's basically where their wings will can become deformed, where they can't fly anymore. And so what they really recommend is actually feeding them like corn. There's some other options you can find online. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but something that's closer to their natural diet. Yes, angel wing disease. Thank you.
And then someone asked, where is the best place to look for owls?
Ooh. Um, oh, the best place. That's tricky, because there are owls in urban areas and in rural areas. Um, I think one of the best places to look is if you can find maybe like a wooded area with some snags. Snags are standing dead trees, and so they often offer hollow areas in the dead tree where owls can roost. Another way is to just, be out at night and to listen for owls as well.
Great. And then I think this is a really funny question. Awesome. But in your professional opinion, why are pigeons the best birds ever?
Well, I will say I don't have as high of an opinion about pigeons. Pigeons in North America, they're actually invasive, which means they're not native here. The pigeons that we have today, we used to have a native one called the passenger pigeon, which is now extinct. I do think pigeons are really cool, though. They can do a lot of acrobatics for how heavy and chunky they look. I'm pretty impressed that they can be pretty agile flyers. And they also come in some really cool different colors, which I think is really neat. They're also the only bird that can drink and swallow. So most birds, when they drink water, they'll have their head down to collect the water, and then they have to tip their head back to swallow, whereas pigeons can just gulp water down and not having to lift their head. Just different.
Fun fact, I didn't know that. It's pretty cool.
Mhm.
And then speaking of invasive species, in regards to birds, are there any other species of birds that are invasive to the state of Oregon?
Yeah, so actually in the US, the two other big contenders are the European house sparrow, which is very common. You can look it up online. They're kind of everywhere. Also, European starlings, which are they're really pretty, but they're also competing with all of our cavity nesters, and so they become a big issue throughout the country as well.
And then what about the owl that's in what is it? In battle with like the barred owl, the spotted owl.
Oh, that's a really hot topic still in Oregon because we have the northern spotted owl. They've been doing decades of work on trying to bring back this species in the Pacific Northwest, and we have had barred owls come in, and they're potentially outcompeting northern spotted owls, and there's concern of hybridization in which barred and spotted owls are also breeding together, which is an issue because we might lose our northern spotted owls that way. So researchers right now they're doing surveys, they're looking into different methods on how to control barred owls. But yeah, that's a serious topic right now that people are working on.
Uh, there was like a little mini fight happening in our comment section. But
Oh.
yeah, so talking about like out competing species when they're moving into a new territory, can you talk about some of the ways, because birds fly wherever they want to, right? Like that's their means of travel. But like what do you mean by out competing? Like what kind of competition are they like fighting for, pretty much?
Yeah, so basically they're competing for territory, for breeding grounds, for nesting cavities. Again, a lot of cavity nesting birds actually don't make their own cavities, and so they rely on finding them, in old buildings or in dead trees. And so there's only a certain number that is in like a good habitat area, and so if an invasive species gets there first and isn't kicked out, then it's going to take over a new habitat. Whereas our native species, they might not be able to breed that year because they can't find suitable habitat.
Awesome. And then we're going to wrap things up right now, but I'll take the final couple of questions. Feel free to ask like last minute questions and we'll try to get to them as much as possible. And then we'll allow Sarah some time at the very end to talk about some other projects she's working on. Because it's really exciting. I got a preview of it today. So, and then someone asked, why do birds dive bomb in front of cars?
Ooh. I'm not totally sure. There's a lot of different things going on, probably. If it's during the breeding season, they're probably being territorial. Some of it could also just be they could see a reflection, and so they might just see that as someone invading their territory and they're trying to kick that other bird out, even though it's just a reflection. Depends on the species and time of year, and yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and final question. Can barred and spotted owls produce viable offspring?
I believe they can produce offspring. I'm not sure if those offspring can reproduce themselves, but I believe there are records that they have produced offspring.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah, from a distance. I would love to talk to you more in the office, but unfortunately, we'll just have to continue this until everything is safe. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining in today and for asking those awesome questions. And hopefully you take on this activity at home and take the opportunity to get into birding. Again, you just do this in your backyard or from even your window, like Sarah mentioned. But yeah, Sarah, is there anything you would like to add, like any other activities we should look forward to in the future?
Yeah, well, first before I get into other things, if you did draw a bird today, we'd love to see it if you want to send it to us. I'd love to see what people came up with today. And also, yeah, so we'll be having more videos like this come out. We're also going to have an owl pellet lesson where I am talking about how owls make pellets, and then also we're going to dissect some different pellets and see what we find. And then also, if you go to calapooia.org, so CALAPOOIA, it's a bit of a mouthful, but we have a lot of online lessons you can check out, and they are under our outdoor school section. And I just put up a new one today, which is all about bird migration, where you get to learn more about Vox's swifts, which live on the West Coast. So check it out if you have some time. Or if you have some kids that are bored and, might like an obstacle course to run through.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone.